Welcome to More to Come with Dee Sarton. I'm Dee. Glad to have you with me today and excited about what we're going to talk about because here on More to Come, it's my goal that we give old age a new image, one that is filled with good things, a good old age. For example, deeper faith, greater wisdom, a purpose, health, wonder, and today, adventure is going to be my focus because you know what? Ever since I started this channel a few weeks ago, I've had a movie in the back of my mind that I thought, I really want to watch that again. And that is the movie The Bucket List. It came out in 2007, so that means I saw it for the first time probably about when I was 50. And so I think it had an impact on me because I definitely remembered it. And I've seen a lot of movies I don't even remember. And I remember thinking at the time, that's a good idea. And then as I grew older, I actually did start a bucket list later on before I retired. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go watch this movie again and just see if it was as good as I remember and if I still think it's a really good idea. So my husband and I watched it the other night, and you know what? It's kind of a crazy story. It's these two old guys that meet in a hospital room. They're both diagnosed with terminal cancer. And that sounds like a pretty dark, heavy theme, but they turn it into a wonderful romp, really, through their unlikely friendship as they develop a bucket list and live it out with each other in all of its iterations. And it's funny, kind of sad, very poignant at times. But overall, the focus of that movie is a bucket list that is full of fun and adventure. And so I thought, well, let's think about that a little bit and decide if this bucket list is a good idea here on More to Come. And so I thought about it a lot. And I thought, yeah, because it's a lot like setting goals. When we're in the work world, we're constantly setting goals for ourselves, for our corporation, for our team. And that's because we know very well that setting goals has been proven as one of those really valuable, age-old, just solid reasons to do something that's going to lead to success. And so really a bucket list is just a glorified goal for those of us, especially at the stage of life that we're in, as we look at thinking and planning and making our old age, maybe it's because it's hard to spit out those words, old age, but making our old age really count. And that's what I'm here for. And so that's what I'm going to do. And as we think about that movie, I'd recommend you go watch it. There's some pretty raunchy language in it, and I always wish they wouldn't do that. But overall, the theme of the movie has some really good points, and it makes some good thinking time as you watch that movie. So my bucket list, I mentioned earlier that I started one. I started it probably when I turned 60, I would think, because that's when I started thinking about retiring from my broadcasting career that I'd done for 40 years. And as I thought about that, there was one thing that just stood out, and it's one of the fun things, which that's what I'm going to start out with today for our bucket list, the fun things. Because we can talk about, a bucket list for every area of our life and those heavier areas of our life, our relationships, our purpose, all those things. But let's just talk about the fun things to start with because it's kind of fun to dream. And I did that, and the thing I had always wanted, for decades, I wanted to have alpacas. So if you saw my thumbnail, you saw me with Libby. Libby is one of my younger alpacas, and she is a kisser. And she's a symbol of my bucket list dream coming true. Libby is one of 7 alpacas that I have, and they're a little herd that has lots of personality. I have a grouchy old gal. She clucks at me every time I come out there. And then I have Libby, who wants to kiss me all the time, but she doesn't like to cuddle. I have Molly, though, who really does like for me to love on her, and that's fun. And so on it goes. Those alpacas have really fulfilled my bucket dream wish, and I was able to cross that off my list right after I retired. So I've had those now for a few years. And there's some work involved with alpacas, just like all farm animals. There's some disappointments. I've lost we call them crias, that's a baby. I lost a baby alpaca, and that was heartbreaking. But I've had 3 babies, and that's joyful and wonderful. And so that bucket list item has just been a blessing to me. They're really therapeutic is what they are. And so one of these days I'm going to take you out into my pasture and introduce you to them and tell you a lot more about why alpacas really are therapy for me, and why I do think our bucket list should include something that is therapeutic, especially at this season of life, because there are things that we face in our older age that aren't fun, and we need to have a plan for that. And I think having these alpacas has been great, because I go out there, and when I'm out there, it's kind of all I can think about. It's all consuming for a few minutes or a few hours, depending on how long I'm out there. And we all need something like that. So anyway, that's my alpaca story. But alpacas, they're just one thing. I had a lot of things on my list, but that's one of the things that's really tangible that came true for me. And so my takeaway was that we all need something fun and therapeutic in our bucket list. And so I thought, well, when I'm going to start this bucket list series, it's going to be a series. The first part of that series should be the fun stuff. So let's start there. And I really hope that I can talk you into joining me on this journey, because I think we could have a lot of fun together. It would be so great for me to hear what your things are on your bucket list that would be fun. And a lot of that is a real selfish ambition of mine, because I love new ideas. I found out about alpacas. I never even heard of alpacas until one day at the Western Idaho Fair in the late 1980s. Two little teenage girls came up and asked me, would you like to let us put our alpacas on your TV show? I was doing the news live at the Western Idaho Fair. And I said, oh, well, sure. What are alpacas? And they brought these alpacas over, and I fell in love, and I knew I wanted them right then. But you know what? That was when they were first being imported into the U.S. And it's a long story that I won't tell here, but it was $20,000 to $50,000 to get one alpaca. And you can't have just one. You've got to have two or three at least. So anyway, long story short, trying to make it short, I had to make that a very long-term goal. And fortunately, the price came down, and I was able to get those alpacas. But the reason that I mention that is that ideas come to us from you never know where. And so I'm thinking, if you share some of your bucket list items with the rest of us as we form a community here on More to Come, then maybe we'll give each other some fun ideas, some things to try that we never even thought of or ever even knew we would want to do. I know one thing I don't want to do. In the movie, The Bucket List, Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, they end up jumping out of an airplane. Morgan Freeman he was kicking and screaming. He didn't want to do it, but Jack Nicholson did. Anyway, sometimes we get drug into things and maybe we don't think we want to do them, but then we try them and we really do. So, let's share with each other. So that's kind of my point there, is I would really love for you to join me on this journey. We're going to start with the fun stuff, and it's just a roadmap really for having things to look forward to, something to enjoy dreaming about and paying attention to. So anyway, I'm inviting you to join me as we take this bucket list idea from cliche, which has kind of become a cliche, to reality, and seeing if it really doesn't help us have a great old age. So, research says that bucket lists are really, as I said earlier, a form of goal setting. And that research is deep. It's decades of research on goal setting. And here's what it shows. It shows that when you set goals, I'm going to transfer that to make a bucket list, then you add clarity to what you're thinking about and maybe wanting to do. Clarity, but also intention, because we can talk all day long about the things. Oh, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. But we don't really do them. And so this bucket list, and watching in the movie as they crossed off those things, that was a very key point. There's a sense of satisfaction that comes from that is hard to replace. So anyway, greater satisfaction, increased motivation. You've got it written down somewhere. It's staring at you. Make a list where you see it every day. Think about it every day. Pray about it every day. Dream about it every day, and that will be good too. So I'm sorry, my mind is going faster than my mouth. It helps us focus on what matters most, because as you make that bucket list, maybe you'd love to do something with your whole family. That's complicated to get everybody's schedules together, to make it work, everybody be able to afford to do it, blah, 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 blah. It can be really, really hard. But if you do that, it actually helps you to focus on what matters most. Maybe it isn't taking a trip, a cruise together, but the getting together is what matters. And so how can you figure out how to do that without it costing a lot of money if that's an issue? That's just one example of how that can help you focus on what matters most. It also, setting goals, having a bucket list, generates hope and anticipation. Anticipation. Remember that old ketchup commercial? Anticipation. I think that's how it went. Anticipation. Well, we all can use a little of that. We can use a lot of hope. And so this is a fun way to bring some of that anticipation and hope into our life. It helps us move from drifting to intentional living. And if there's one thing I can say on this More to Come YouTube channel, it is, let's live intentionally. We don't have 50 years ahead, most likely. Now, maybe some of you do. If you're 50 and you're watching, hey, by the way, welcome. You're a young'un around here. But most of us, we have a timeline. We know that we have to make the most, and we need to live intentionally. And boy, am I going to talk a lot more about that in my next episode. So I don't want you to miss it. I have a great tool that I'm going to give you that you can use that I think will really add a lot of motivation to being intentional in these decades that we're moving through. And the other thing that they found in their research, and I thought this was really fascinating, is that anticipation itself, whether you do the thing or not, anticipation itself increases happiness. So, some things to think about. All right, so we're going to challenge each other, okay? Are you game? Are you in? I'd love for you to put a comment here and say, hey, Dee, I'm in. I'm going to do a bucket list. I'd really love to help with that. And I'm going to help you do it because I've created a resource. I'll tell you more about it in just a few minutes. It's a free, can you see that? It's kind of going out of focus. It's a free resource. It'll be a reflection guide. This will be the first installment for this series on bucket lists, and it'll help you kind of think through it. Maybe work through it with a girlfriend or with a guy friend or your husband or your wife. Maybe you'll see that it's a good conversation starter. Maybe for you, it'll be during your quiet time. It's just something that you can use to reflect on this idea and what you want to put on your bucket list. But I want to give you a challenge. Let's create our bucket list together. Let's really do it, and do it in a serious manner in that we take everything into consideration, even the obstacles, because there will be obstacles. There were obstacles to get my alpacas, let me tell you. Big ones. I had a backyard. I didn't have acreage. I had to talk my husband into it. That was another one. And in my case, I had to talk my whole family into it. And so there were a lot of obstacles. And there still are, frankly. There's still things that I have to consider that impact my whole family that I have to overcome because I have alpacas. So it's important, I think, that we do this seriously, where we take everything into consideration, make that list something that we're really going to set as goals, things that we'd really like to do. Now, we're not going to start on the heavy stuff, as I mentioned earlier, but we're going to get there because our bucket list can include some pretty rich things too. So don't think I'm just going to keep this at the surface. It's at the surface for this episode, but we're going to go deep as we go into this whole exploration and challenge. So here's what I'd like you to think about. What have you always wanted to try? Or is there something that really piqued your interest, or you thought, oh, I wish I could do that? Well, those would be things to start thinking about for your bucket list. I will give you some starter ideas in this reflection packet that I'm going to give you. But as I give you those are just starters. Those are just suggestions. For example, it'll say, I want to get your creative juices flowing, so think about some of these things. Is there a dream destination you've always wanted to visit? There's some great places that I'd like to go. I don't know about you. Ride in a hot air balloon. That's one of those things that I was able to do as part of my job as a reporter. Oh, it was a tough assignment, but I did it, and I couldn't have dreamed of what that's like. It is a very surreal experience, very fun, very peaceful, and very, very joyful. So anyway, that's one reason I put that on the list. Learn a new skill or hobby. Now listen, don't I sound like I sound like I'm telling you something you don't know? You know this. Learning new things. That is one of the best things we can do for our brain. It's important to do. it's vital to do as we age. So what's a new skill, something that you would enjoy learning? I have alpacas, and so everybody thought that I would become a knitter or a crocheter because their fiber is one of the, well, it's the finest fiber on the planet. It's known for that. It's prized for that. It's very expensive. It's turned into yarn. So I went off to my dear friends, Yarnageddon, which is a little, they have alpacas and they're my mentors. So they have this darling yarn shop. So I went down there and took some lessons in crocheting. Oh, I gotta say, I hated it. I just hated it. And I know crocheting itself would be good for my brain, but I just didn't like it. And I had too many other things I wanted to do. I paint, for example. I wanted to learn how to paint. And so I use my YouTube to the best to learn techniques for painting with acrylics. And maybe someday I'll show you my little studio for that. So all of those kinds of things that, we think about that maybe we would like to do, a new thing we would like to learn, it cannot just be a frivolous thing. It can be helping our brain, for heaven's sakes. So that's good. What have you thought about that sounds adventurous? Something that you could do. I asked my husband the other day, would you want to skydive? This was after we watched the bucket list. And he said, I always wanted to skydive, but I don't think I do at this age. We're both 70. And I said, darn, I'm sorry you didn't do that, before. And he said, oh, it's okay. But it is, we do have to take our age into consideration. So we might have to, settle for a zip line. But can I tell you, zip lines are fun and doable. And I mean, if you have just, enough energy to get up there and go for it, it's really a great thing to try. So I give you a list of some of those things in this free resource that I'm going to make available for you. I'll get it here on my notes in the description for you so that you'll be able to get that. So I just want to say before I challenge you one last time that I know this will be a whole lot more fun if I'm not just the one yammering on here. I know it'll be a lot more fun if I'm able to read your comments and bring you some people that are inspiring. I've got a few interviews that I'm working on now that I think will really inspire us all, that we can do it, that we can make our old age wonderful. It can be full of adventure, meaning, learning, growing, realizing that we're here for a purpose and living out that purpose. There's a Bible verse that I'm going to be using throughout this series. It's in Psalm 90:12, and it says, teach us to number our days that we may grow in wisdom. The wisdom that I think can come from making a list of fun things is that we also will be modeling for our children and our grandchildren what it's like to really live, to really embrace the fact that we have been given the gift of years and we can do more than even we think or imagine if we start living really intentionally, helping each other. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. All right, so if you will do me another favor, it will help so much if you would like and subscribe to this YouTube channel, More to Come with Dee Sarton, especially if you would write some comments there and tell me if you're in or out on this bucket list. If you're out, tell me why. Maybe you don't think it'll work. I don't know. We'd love to prove you wrong, but maybe you've had a bad experience with that, or maybe you've had a great experience. You've already done your bucket list and you're on your way. Please share that experience with us too. Share with us some things that maybe you're thinking about as you do the reflection page that you're going to have available to you as a free resource right here on More to Come. And I'm going to see you next time. And next time, I'm going to give you that tool that I mentioned earlier. And it is going to help us number our days, but in a good way, in a way that will help us live a great old age. Thanks for being with me today on More to Come.